Hi, today I'm on the outskirts of Mintlaw and the plan is to walk into an old estate and camp in a deer clump. I'll tell you what a deer clump is in a minute, but first things first, I'll get going. It's very busy at the moment. There's loads of people taking a walk. It's the first nice day we've had in quite a long time. So I'm going to head off and I'll see if I can find a spot where I'm not going to be seen. So I'll spin the camera around and I'll take you in. Now behind me is the clump of trees. It's called Highland Man's Clump, and the path carries on round there and all the way up the hill, and I'm going to walk up the side of these bushes here up to the skyline and then walk across. Hopefully that means I won't get seen by anybody on the path, because yeah, it's been very busy and it still is busy. So I reckon I've got about 3 hours of daylight left, so I've got to kind of get my skates on, get up this hill, get across, and then find myself a spot to camp. So I think we better push on. Okay, light is going quickly, so I think what I'll do is I'll get set up, but I'll do it the quick way. So there you go, all set up. So I'll spin the camera around and I'll let you see what I've got over there. Okay, so I'll show you round my setup. It's slightly changed because it's kind of winter now. Well, it's the late autumn, it's the last couple of days in October, so I'm prepared a little bit more for cold weather and rain. So I'll show you what I do on my hammock setup. I am far from a hammock expert. I'm still a hammock noob, but this is my gear that's adapted over maybe 3 years of using a hammock. So I'll show you what I've got. I'll just turn the camera around. So first of all, I'm using a bigger tarp. In the summer I use a 3x3 in a diamond configuration, and I like that because you can see the sky out the sides, but come the winter time I need a bigger tarp. So this is a DD Tarps 3.5 by 3.5 in multicam, and it covers my extra large one wind hammock. It's a one wind hammock? Yeah, it's a one wind hammock. It's the one wind zipper. And I've got on the bottom of the hammock, I've got a one Tigris underquilt. It's a synthetic underquilt and it's kind of rated for, I think, 10 degrees, but I've used it, you know, well below zero, and it's been more than adequate. As I said, one wind zipper hammock. I really like this hammock. Keeps the bugs out and it takes my rather sizable bulk. Ooh, let's get underneath. Another thing for the winter, I've got my OEX Leviathan 4-season bag, which I think is a good bag. It's a bargain quality down bag. I've got a blow up pillow, I'll tell you why in a minute, and I've got my Van Gogh Shangri-La pillow, which is a kind of memory foam pillow, which is really good. So I'll just come outside and I'll tell you. Ooh. why I use it. Now, I find sleeping in a hammock can be quite uncomfortable at times. Now, I know you can do diagonal, and this is a nice big hammock, but when you've got the underquilt on, it kind of limits how diagonal you can lie. And eventually what happens is I end up sleeping in the banana form, and my back and particularly my knees start to hurt. But I found an easy way to overcome that. I put an inflatable pillow just under the back of my knees, and it just raises them enough to stop the pain, and actually it makes for quite a comfortable sleep. So I always bring one of my inflatable pillows and I just tuck it under my knees. If I've forgotten it, I roll my combat jacket up and do the same with that, stick it under my knees, and it just stops you locking your knees out or locking your legs out, and it makes for a really comfy night. So that's the kit I've got with me. I'm also going to be using my little titanium stove, my little gas stove, when I'm cooking my dinner, because although I'm kind of stealthing it here, because there is a footpath just kind of over there, it's going to be dark at 5 o'clock tonight. The clocks went back last night, and I don't think anybody's going to be walking past very soon. Saying that, there is some people now just walking past, so I don't know if we can make them out. Just down the bottom, there we go, just appearing between the trees. But I don't think they're bothered by me. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'll get comfy, sit in my seat, and I'll tell you why I've picked this spot. So give me a minute and I'll get back to you. Now, this little clump of woods in the middle of open ground is called Highland Man's Clump, and it has been a named coppice. No, it's not really a coppice. It's a small island of trees in a big open set of fields, and it's been named on the maps since Ordnance Survey maps started in Britain. This is over 200 years old, and it's kind of strange because it sits here in amongst what is now wheat fields, but was, when it was set up, open grassland. And its purpose was to give deer a place to hunker down at night. Now, it wasn't out of being nice to deer, it was making it easier for gentlemen to shoot deer. This was part of a massive country estate owned by wealthy people, and this was all about deer stalking and making deer stalking easier for gentlemen, because this is a lowland estate and the deer here would have been roe deer, and it was all about making it accessible for fat Georgian gentlemen to come out here and shoot them. Now, it was part of an estate called the Pitfour Estate. Now, in its height, it was one of the biggest estates in Scotland. It was set up in 1700 by the first laird of Pitfour, James Ferguson, and he was a barrister, and he was followed by his son, who was also called James Ferguson, who was the second laird of Pitfour, and between them they increased the size of this estate by buying up forfeited land from the government. The surrounding estates were Jacobites, and when they eventually got caught by the British government, their land was seized, and the canny lairds of Pitfour snapped up the land at a bargain price. Now, in 1777, when the second laird died, the estate was over 30,000 acres, which is pretty big. Now, the third laird was also called James Ferguson, and he was referred to as the member because he was also a barrister, but eventually he went on to become the area's Member of Parliament. He was a real philanthropist. He founded the local village, Mintlaw, but he also enlarged lots of other villages around here like New Deer, Buckenhaven, and he invested a lot of time in making the place better for the people. But he invested a lot of time in making the Pitfour Estate the swankiest estate in Scotland. He built a new mansion house. He built the massive lake or loch, Pitfour Loch, that we walked past on the way up. He was also responsible for building the Temple of Theseus. I think that's what it's called. It's looking pretty sorry for itself now, but it was built as a freshwater bathing place. It also got used for some weird stuff, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But he really built this estate up, and it was referred to in Georgian high society as the Blenheim of the North. So it was really posh, and he put a lot of effort into it. But when he died, he started a problem for Pitfour. He died unmarried with no kids, and his inheritance was intestate. So there was a problem. Eventually, the fourth laird inherited the estate. He was James's youngest brother, George. Now, George, although he was the youngest brother, was in his late 70s at the time of inheritance and in very poor health. Now, he'd spent most of his adult life as the governor of Tobago in the Caribbean, and he'd come back to Scotland to look after the estate, and he was referred to locally as you guessed it, the governor. Now, the governor didn't have long as the Laird of Pitfour, and when he died, there was a problem, and that's when it started to go off the rails. He, again, hadn't got any legitimate children, but he'd been a bit canny, and what he'd done is he'd written into his will that his illegitimate son should take over as Laird of Pitfour. Now, the fifth Laird was also called George, and he was the illegitimate son of the fourth Laird. Now, he was referred to as the Admiral, and the Admiral was a bit of a rogue. When he inherited the estate, he was already heavily in debt, and he wasn't going to let being in debt spoil his fun. He was a drinker, a gambler, and a party animal, and he was going to live it large. Now he was finally the Laird. Now he would sell off bits of land to pay off his debts, but he still held high society parties at the Mansion House. But a couple of things he did was he built a race course at White Cow Woods, which is just kind of over there. And so his gentleman friends could gamble and view the horse racing, he built an observation tower. And most people who see the observation tower think it's for some sort of cerebral pastimes as looking at the stars or viewing nature. But no, it was all about horse racing and betting on horses. Now, the Admiral also was a bit of a nutter. And what he did with the Temple of Zeus was he put crocodiles in there. Now, nobody quite knows what happens with the crocodiles, but there's a story around here that when the estate was broken up, they were released into the loch. But I don't know how true that is. Nobody's actually seen them, but there ain't a lot of trout in there anymore, so maybe there is. Now, the sixth and final Laird of Pitfour was George Arthur Ferguson. He was the son of the fifth Laird, and he was a captain in the Grenadier Guards. He spent a lot of time abroad and didn't spend much time at Pitfour. Now, when he inherited it, what was left of the estate, he was already in a lot of financial problem, and he was a prodigious gambler like his father. So by 1909 he was declared bankrupt, and he moved to London and put the estate on the market to try and recoup and pay off his debts. Now, the last Laird of Pitfour, George Arthur Ferguson, died in 1924 in Luton. Now, the estate stayed on the market for a long time. It'd been on the market through the First World War and continued to be unsold. Now, eventually the Mansion House was purchased in 1927 by an Aberdeen building company who promptly knocked it down purely to reuse the granite blocks. Now, all the other fields and land was sold off in parcels to local farmers, which is what it is now. Lots of these fields around here are owned by farmers. So what is left of the estate? Well, the tower is in quite a good state of repair. It was renovated by some local enthusiasts and Aberdeenshire Council, and in the summer months you can climb to the top and look out at the views. Now, the Temple of Zeus and some of the other buildings, the stables and the riding school, they're in a sorry state of repair, and they're on the buildings at risk register. Now, the racecourse, if you know where to look, is still there. The crocodiles, I'm not sure, but I don't think I would go for a swim in the loch. I hope you enjoyed that. That's just a little bit about where I am, and I think what I shall do now is I'm going to start getting my kit together to have some food, because it's sun's dropping. I don't know what the time is, but it can't be far off 5 o'clock, and I think I'm going to put on another layer. Oh, don't touch your mic. I think I'm going to put on another layer because it's starting to get cold. So I'll come back to you in a minute. Well, it's 5 o'clock and it's dark. Don't you just love those long winter nights? Yeah, it's going to be a long one. Anyway, tonight I am going to be cooking a ribeye steak with hand-cut chips fried in goose fat and served with some steamed asparagus. Nah, of course I'm not. It's not that sort of a channel. Spicy noodles, and in fact I'm eating the same ones again, shin ramen. Let me just give you a good shot of that. Yeah, that's my favourite one, and again, this wasn't that much of a planned trip. It was a last minute weather window that lined up with some time off, and I've been struggling to align my time off and a weather window. The weather's been pretty poor this October, so that's what I'm having. Last minute shin ramen and some pepper armies cut up into it. Nothing fancy. And I think I've got a can of rice pudding in the bag. I'm not even sure, because I just threw a load of stuff in the bag and went for it. So I will I'll get the boiler on. What have I got? I'm using my Tokes titanium pot, super light, 750 mils, perfect for the job. And my, there you go, as I've not shown it very close up before, it is my fire maple titanium. I think it's a copy of the first version of the pocket rocket, and I'm using the Coleman Extreme gas because it's about 4 degrees already. No, it's not quite 4 degrees, you can't see your breath. It's but it's getting pretty darn cold. My fingers are cold, so it must be kind of around 4 or 5 degrees. So this is when these things start to actually show their worth. This extreme gas, it works a whole lot better than the standard stuff. So I'll be cooking on that, and just get some water boiled up, and I'll bring you back when I'm done, and I'll show you what my noodles look like, although they'll look pretty much like the noodles did before. But anyway, I'll bring you back when it's cooked. Okay, I've waited long enough for the noodles to be soft, so they should be ready by now. There we go, in my wonderful Korean insulated noodle bowl. If you're into your noodles, I strongly recommend you get one of these. And there you go, nice big bowl of red noodles. And for the strange people out there who want to see me eat noodles, I'll give you my first slurp. That's just perfect. Oh, pardon me, that's a bit spicy as well. So I'm going to get that down my neck, but I'm going to turn the camera off and turn that light off before I get spotted, because I can hear people walking on the path over there, and I'm a bit like a lighthouse with this thing on. So I'm going to turn it off, and when I finish my scoff, I'll get back to you. Oh man, that's tickling my throat. Yeah, so time to eat my spicy noodles. See you in a minute. Okay, that's the noodles scoffed and the rice pudding, and it was very nice. That was a particularly spicy one. They do vary a little bit, and that was on the upper end of spicy. I've now got myself a nice hot chocolate with a small shot of rum in it, just to keep the cold out. And I'm going to get this down my neck, and next time you see me, I'll be in the hammock. Bit of a rookie mistake tonight. I forgot my gloves. First proper cold camp of the year, or of the winter, and I forgot my gloves, so I'm going to get this down my neck, and I better turn this light off because I've just seen a torch over there, so I'm going to turn that off now. Well, it's 10 o'clock, it's pitch black outside and the temperature's really dropped, so I'm going to get myself hunkered down. I think I'm going to listen to my Rebus book for a little bit, and then get my head down. I've got an early start in the morning. I've got an appointment in Aberdeen, so I'm going to be up at 6, so it'll be dark when I get up. I think I'll just strike camp, get out of here, and get some breakfast at McDonald's. So I'll see you in the morning. Well, good morning. It's about 6:15. It's still pitch black, but it's very misty out there. It's time for me to get up and strike camp and get back to the van. So I'm going to pack this up and I'll speak to you when I get home. So I'll see you in a bit. Well, that's me all packed up. It's still absolutely pitch black, but I'll spin the camera around and show you where I was. So there we go. So there we go, no rubbish left behind, and unusually there was no rubbish from anybody else, so I didn't have to pick anybody else's stuff up, but I will take my bin bag on the outside of a rucksack, and if I see anything on the way out I'll pick it up as per usual and bin it when I get home. So I'm going to get my sack on now and yomp all the way back to the car in the dark, and I'll do my wash up when I get home, so I'll see you there. Well, that's me back, and all in all, a really good camp. I was toasty warm in the hammock, and even though it absolutely hammered down with rain through the night, I was nice and warm, thankfully, because I took that 3.5 by 3.5 tarp with me. So really enjoyed it. Now, I only scratched the surface of the Pitfour Estate, so if you are interested in finding out more about it, I'm going to leave some links in the description that give a bit more detail. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a thumbs up and a comment, and if you're not already subscribed, it would be a great help to the channel if you click the subscribe button. Well, until the next one, I'll say ta-da. Ta-da a bit.